The Harris home is officially at an all-time high for chaos. And this time, family meals and serene smiles won't cover it up. Expecting tranquility, Mendeecees Harris entered his house. However, he discovered his mother maintaining her ground, his wife gone, with years of silent stress eventually exploding like an unanticipated explosion. His mother had expelled Yandy Smith Harris from her own home. Nor a misinterpretation, nor a metaphor. A complete eviction. This is more than a family dispute. This is treachery. Arms folded, seated at the supper table, Judy wasn't only using her position of authority to eject Yandy, it was a message. The guy who typically keeps things together, Mendeecees, lost his temper when he discovered what had happened. Mom against marriage, love versus blood, power versus respect. Greetings from the showdown. Everyone is watching, but nobody saw it coming. Suddenly, there was silence in the home that had been filled with late-night chatter, laughing, and the commotion of a large mixed family. It wasn't peace, however. There was the quiet that follows the detonation of a bomb. Yandy Smith Harris was standing at the doorway, holding a bag, her chest constricted in shock. She had been the pillar of support for this family throughout her years in jail. Chaos, triumphs, sorrow, and reunions. However, she was treated like an outcast in the house she and Mendeecees Harris constructed in a single explosive moment. The flash. This followed months, if not years, of silent hostility between Mendeecees' mother and Yandy. The two ladies had never quite connected Judy. Judy was passionately protective of her kid. Yandy, who had a strong will of her own, considered herself the lady who had supported him through everything. The person who was worthy of the honor and power that came with becoming his wife. That struggle for dominance has always been there. However, nobody anticipated for it to explode in this manner. It started off much like any other day. For a few days, Judy had been residing at the home, assisting with the children. It seemed like a nice, family-friendly plan on paper. It was really a keg of powder. The mood changed as soon as Judy entered. Small details, who chose what the children should eat, and who sat where at the table would consume food. Quiet, acrimonious power conflicts about how to structure the home. Yandy made an effort to maintain it courteous. She bit her lip. When she wanted to shout, she smiled. However, Judy, driven a little further every day by her own feeling of control over her son's life, she would say something brief. I was here before you were. Or my kid still resides in this place. Phrases that may seem innocuous to a third party. However, they felt like little slashes to Yandy. Old wounds are being reopened by each one. Then the tipping moment arrived. A straightforward discussion regarding options for the home descended into a tirade. Judy accused Yandy of attempting to force her out of her son's life by behaving as if the home was hers and hers alone. Yandy was taken aback but refused to. Judy was reminded by back down that she was Mendeecees' wife and not only a visitor. When he wasn't there, it was the lady who held it down. Judy didn't want to hear it, however. Her voice became harsher and louder. Additionally, in a second that would transmit waves of shock through the Harris home, Yandy was instructed to gather her belongings and go. This is not something you run. Yandy's residence. Yes, I do. This is not your house. It's my son's. If you are incapable of showing respect, Judy said, that, you can leave, with her arms folded like a judge rendering a decision, and Yandy paused for a moment. There was no hesitation, no second guessing, and the expression on Judy's face told her differently, even though at first she believed she was bluffing, simply furious and attempting to exert authority. Yandy felt the fire build in her chest, wanting to shout, to fight back. But Judy meant every word. She had a gut feeling that she couldn't win this war right now, not with Judy's heels buried in the earth or Mendeecees gone. It wasn't about the clothing, so she turned away, blinked away the pain in her eyes, and went to the bedroom to pack her things. It had to do with the principal, the shoes, and being ordered to vacate the house she had helped construct. As she zipped up her luggage, her hands shaking, not out of terror, but out of anger and heartache, recalling all the evenings she had spent battling for this family, of her sacrifices and commitment, and how Judy took all of that away with a single command in a couple of minutes. She didn't say anything as she left the home, but their quiet said volumes, and Yodi sat on the sofa with her arms crossed. Having her face folded and her energies chilly, she saw this as establishing limits rather than cruelty. She thought Yandy had gone too far and had forgotten who had brought up Mendeecees and kept this family together before she was ever involved. Judy mumbled under her breath. She acts like she built this family, not realizing that her comments would eventually reverberate much beyond that house's boundaries. However, this family was there before her and will continue to be there after her. She was unaware that this was more than a simple power move. It was a war declaration. The tension between the two ladies had escalated by the time Yandy shut the door. It was the type of familial rift that cannot be repaired by a hasty apology. The next hours seemed to go on forever. Judy continued as if nothing had occurred, humming in the kitchen and browsing through her phone. However, everyone in that home, even the children, sensed the change in the atmosphere. There was a broken item. Yandy, meanwhile, fought back tears as she sat in her vehicle and stared at the driving wheel. She wasn't only upset. She felt deceived and embarrassed. When Mendeecees was imprisoned, she had been present. After raising the children, running the home, and keeping the family viable while everyone was looking, she was suddenly being treated like an outsider. Her thoughts were racing. To help Mendeecees comprehend what his mother had done, she intended to contact him and spill the beans. However, in her heart, she also understood the conflict she was going to start. Because no one emerges unscathed when a guy is forced to choose between his mother and his wife. And it was impossible to go back to acting like nothing was wrong this time. That evening, when the sun sank, two ladies, one in the home, one outside, both certain of their correctness, ready to face the eventual conflict. What they didn't realize that Mendeecees would soon be walking right into the center of it. And everything that had been simmering in the background was going to explode when he did. Blow up. The air seemed heavy, heavier than normal, and silent but not serene as soon as you entered through the front door. The home seemed different even though I had just been gone for a day. The toys were strewn all over the floor and there was still a little odor of food. It was that. He lost his fury. Avoid doing that, he retorted. Don't pretend she's in charge of me. Ma, I'm an adult. I was brought up to be one by you. And you're behaving as if I'm incapable of making my own decisions at the moment. My wife was expelled by you. The lady who possessed my back while I was incarcerated. The mother who looked for your grandchildren while everyone else condemned us. You owe her. Despite your dislike for her, show her respect. Judy attempted to conceal it under her customary bluster, but her lips quivered a little. All I was doing was keeping my peace. Someone who treats me like I'm invisible is not someone I can live with. The front door opened before Mendeecees could respond. They both turned to see her standing in the doorway with her bag in hand and her eyes steady but crimson. The walls could have been split by the stress in the air. She answered, I just came to get the rest of my stuff. Her voice was quiet yet piercing. Mendeecees approached her. His chest was a collision of relief and fury. Hold on, Yandy. She displayed a hand. Let me finish, please. I'm not going to remain where I'm not welcome. Her eyes moved. To Judy, who sat on her throne like a queen, her arms folded. You didn't have to be fond of me, but you also didn't have to make fun of me. Judy's voice rose as she stood. You've been rude from the beginning, behaving as if you're superior to everyone and that this family owes you something. Women like you come and go, I've seen. Yandy's voice remained calm despite her clenched jaw. I'm liked by women. Do you mean the people who support your kid while others won't? The people who pay him weekly visits in jail when does the rest of the world ignore you? They are the ones who bring up his children, keep the home together, and create something out of turmoil. You have indeed seen a lady like me, because you continually claiming credit for stuff that I do. The room exploded. Mendeecees moved in between them, attempting to maintain a steady tone of speech, but both ladies were unthinkable. Enough! He shouted. You two have had enough. This is absurd. His voice pierced the commotion, causing everybody to freeze. He glanced at first his mother. You have no authority to decide how my marriage will be handled, Ma. You just don't. You went too far, even though I still love you. His tone softened as he turned to face Yandy. And you stopped taking offense at anything she said. You're giving her authority over your tranquility. I can't treat Gavor like Wei any longer. Yandy's eyes filled with tears. I just requested to be treated like family, not a warm reception. Rubbing the back of his neck, he let out a sigh. All I desire is serenity. But this place seems like a battleground right now. Judy muttered under her as she shook. Battleground right now. Judy muttered under her as she shook. Her head, take a breath. Either she or I. The curse-like words lingered in the air. Yandy blinked, startled. Was that what you just said? Judy did not recoil. I heard you. I won't share a residence with her. Mendes felt something break inside of him as he glanced from his mother to his wife, the two ladies he loved the most. He would had before encountered impossibilities, but this one seemed unique. There were no correct responses. Then maybe no one lives here, he muttered. Because I am unable to continue to choose between the two of you. The subsequent stillness was deafening. Judy's face became white. For the first time, neither of them had a retort, and Yandy's breath caught. Mendeecees turned, moved toward the door, and went outside, leaving them both standing there as the sound of everything breaking reverberated throughout the home. Inside, with Yandy standing in the doorway once again, and Judy eventually sinking onto the sofa with tears welling up, but pride preventing them, she realized that this wasn't just about one person. Battle. This was the culmination of years of silent animosity, and there would be no easy solution, due to the fact that after the forgiveness becomes a fight of its own when the mother-wife boundary is violated. The following evening was not like any Harris family had ever gone through. After leaving the residence, Mendeecees Harris remained by himself in his vehicle for over an hour. Hands clutching the steering, engine off wheel in an attempt to quiet the roaring tempest within his chest. He had previously experienced hardships such as court cases, incarceration, and media attention, but nothing had prepared him to be divided between his mother and his wife, the two individuals who molded his whole universe. However, inside the home, quiet didn't imply tranquility. Judy Harris was sitting on the sofa, looking at the soundless television. Her arrogance was a protection, but uncertainty was beginning to seep in. She had convinced herself that she was defending her position within the family and preventing Yandy from erasing her. Significance. However, the weight of her statement, "It's her or me," reverberated in her head like a warning she couldn't take back now that Mendeecees had left. A different area of the city. With her phone in her hand and tears finally streaming down her cheeks, Yandy Smith-Hara sat in the passenger seat of her friend's automobile. She had maintained her composure throughout the altercation, denying Judy the joy of seeing her break. However now, away from the fight, away from the home, it exploded. "This ain't fair," she said in a tremulous tone. Her companion gave her hand a little squeeze and said, "After everything I've done for that family," without saying anything. "Words couldn't resolve this," Yandy said, looking through her phone, half expecting a call or text from Indies, but finding nothing. That Judy's remarks were less painful than silence because, despite her anger, she had secretly hoped he would arrive, comfort her, and assure her that they would deal with this together. They were all cooped up in their corners, nursing their wounds instead. It was after midnight when Mendes returned to the home. When Judy stepped up to welcome him, he remained silent. His face was inscrutable and blank. Son, for the first time that day, she started to soften her voice. "I just fulfilled my obligation." "Stop, Ma," he sliced in. "Avoid doing it. Don't pretend that this was done to keep me or a home safe. This had to do with control. You wanted Yandy to know that you are still in charge. But you harmed us both with what you did." Judy started to reply, but he cut her off before she could finish. "You went too far," he said. "You treated my wife disrespectfully, and you treat me disrespectfully when you treat her disrespectfully." He slapped her with his words. Although she had anticipated his anger, she felt her chest tighten as she heard the quiet intensity in his voice, the type that only emerged when he was really done. "I'm your mother," she eventually stated in a low voice. He retorted, "And she's my wife. The female who contained the mother who raised my children as if they were her own took it down while I wasn't there. You believe you're defending your position in my life, but you're driving me away with what you're doing." Judy looked away, blinking hard to stop the tears from streaming down her face since she detests odors. "Mendez, we need to chat." Her palms trembled as her phone finally rang with his name. "Just the two of us." Yandy gazed at the screen for a long time before responding. "All right, one discussion. However, I wouldn't urge you to return to that home as if nothing had occurred," he said. Later that afternoon, they finally got together. And while the tension was high, it was different. Beneath the anguish, there was love. She didn't accept his hand right away when he reached for it, softly. "I'm sorry," he said. "I ought to have been present and made it apparent long ago that yesterday's events were never acceptable." Yandy wiped away her tears. "Mendeecees, I was embarrassed by your mother. She gave me a sense of stranger in my own house. I am unable to just unfill it." "I understand," he muttered, "and I'm not requesting it. Please allow me to repair it." She inhaled deeply. "So this can't be just between you and me? Time? We must all be involved. She, me, and you. Considering that if something doesn't, I can't continue living this way. I need to change." Slowly he nodded. "Then we will do it. However, Ma will need to comprehend my wife comes first. For a period." The barricade Yandy had constructed around her heart crumbled slightly, causing her lip to quiver. It wasn't an answer. Not quite yet. However, it was a beginning. They both knew in their hearts that this conflict had altered everything. There was no return to the previous state of affairs. Only if they could make it through it. For the Harris family, the next week was like walking on shattered glass. The air was delicate. There was tension so great that it encircled the walls. No shouting, no boisterous altercations. Had persuaded to return home for a last talk, but not permanently. He wanted the two ladies together not to quarrel, but in order to get closure. Jaya's pulse raced as her automobile came into the driveway. All of the memories of that home, the milestones, the tears, and the laughs flashed in her brain. It was more than simply a house. It represented everything that she and Mendes had battled for. Nevertheless, it suddenly seemed like entering enemy territory to pass through that door. Judy was already waiting inside. Her gaze darted to the door every few seconds, her fists gripped firmly in her lap. Like a man trapped between two hurricanes, Mendes paced, attempting to soothe them both before they clashed once again. The quiet was more painful than any insult as Yandy walked in. She put her bag down gradually, her eyes keen, her stance erect. Judy glanced at her and then turned away. "I appreciate you coming." And DC spoke in a measured, cautious tone, as if he were working with glass that may break at any moment. Yandy did not sit, but she did nod. "Just let's discuss." "Yes," Judy muttered. Mendeecees might sit between them and look from one to the other. We must figure this out before we leave this house," he continued, "because I can't decide between the two individuals I care about the most. However, I also can't live this way." Yandy let out a slow breath. "I'm not trying to force you to pick, Mendes. All I desire is courtesy. In my own house, I want to be treated as your wife, not like a stranger." Judy stirred uneasily. "You were never described as a stranger by me." "Didn't need to." Yandy fired back. "Your behavior made it clear. For you. Without saying anything to your kid, you threw me out." "How embarrassing was that, do you know?" Judy's voice wavered, but her chin rose a little. "Yandy, you made me feel insignificant. As if I hadn't fit into the life of my own kid. Everything was taken over by you. The children, the home. I just felt like I was replaced." They were both astonished at how vulnerable her tone was. For the first time, the rage barely showed through. What the worry was really about? Yandy inhaled deeply. "I never wanted to take your place, Judy. All I wanted was to join this family. But if you would stop arguing with me at every turn, there would be space for us both." Mendes rested his elbows on his knees as he leaned forward. "I've been trying to say that. Don't lose me, Ma, because I adore her. Your family grows. That's the way it should be." Judy took a peek down at her hands. In actuality, she had been putting up barriers around her heart for years because she was terrified that any woman who entered her son's life would take him away. This time, however, it struck her differently when she heard him say it in a calm, firm, and kind manner. Before she could stop them, tears filled her eyes. "I didn't want to do harm." "You," she mumbled. Either of you. I just didn't know how to share him. Yandy's rage started to lessen a little. Judy, we both love him, but our approaches to that love are different. We can coexist if we cease seeing one another as adversaries. You reared him. I created a life with him. There was silence for a minute, the stillness of the house that comes when everyone has finally run out of things to shout. That's it, he continued. That's what I've been praying for. Mendeecees stood up. We can't change what occurred, but we can choose how to go. Yandy gazed at him, her eyes sparkling. Then let's proceed in the proper manner. Not perfection, but understanding, with limits. Judy nodded slowly. I get that. It wasn't a miracle solution, the sort that culminates in smiles, embraces, and a flawless. The first step was a family supper, but it was genuine. Later that evening, after Judy had gone to bed, Mendeecees and Yandy sat down to bed. Mendeecees and Yandy sat down to